getting an insight beyond the mind, an insight that reaches through all of our layers. It's almost like a bodily sensation, like a jolt of wisdom or realization going through our bodies. You're listening to Consciousness and Me, and my name is Josefin, and I thought this episode would be about describing a Satori or exploring what a Satori is. So the word Satori comes from Zen Buddhism, and it's basically like a sudden insight, a revelation of our true nature or the true nature of reality. And the reason I want to highlight it is because if we don't know what it is, or like if we haven't heard about it, it can go unnoticed. Like we don't really harvest everything that there is to harvest from it. So this is what we're going to do in this episode. And hopefully you come out on the other side either realizing you had a few, or maybe notice when you have one. So when we discover more about ourselves, we can do that on a mind level. Like we can start thinking about, who am I really? Am I really my thoughts? Is there something to me that's more than I think about? And we can start dissolving concepts and change the way we think about ourselves. But then we have these deeper layers of ourselves. That might be the way that we spontaneously react when we get triggered, or just a subconscious filter of how we see the world. Like in the Western world, for instance, we usually, most of us by default, think that I am one person and my consciousness is in my brain, and you are a different person and you have a different consciousness in your brain. And when we start exploring that, according to the non-dual path, for instance, and we realize that maybe that's not true, maybe it's actually the fact that we have the same consciousness, that consciousness isn't generated in our brains. We can understand that logically, for instance, if we do, and think that, yes, that makes sense. But still, when we perceive the world, when we interact in our everyday life, there's still this layer of, I exist in here and you exist in there, and we live in parallel bodies, so to speak. But then all of a sudden, it's almost like it clicks on a deeper level. You get this sense of, it can express itself in any way. So I'm going to express one of the ways that has been manifested for me. It's almost like I get warped out. I could almost feel like a jolt pulling me backwards. And it's like a filter is removed from my eyes. And I can all of a sudden relate to the world in a different way. I can see a human being in front of me and see like, oh, it's like I look at this for the first time. There can be a relaxation in the body, like a deep remembrance. It can be accompanied by laughter or by tears, almost like a bubble is bursted somewhere deep inside me. And that's called a Satori. Almost like a coin dropping one level deeper. It often has an emotional sense to it. I might be flooded with love or with happiness. And that's when the insight drops from the mind into the body. And we can nurture that. We can stay in that. Allow it to radiate, allow it to ripple through us, to really get a hold in our body, to allow it to happen. Because if we don't acknowledge it, it could be that the mind comes in too fast and just puts back the layer again on, no, you're a person and the other one's a person. And we don't let it fully do its job. We don't let it, how do you say? Sometimes it's like aftershakes. The Satori comes and you start to laugh and then you can sit with it for a while. If you give it a few minutes, it's like it keeps deepening, it keeps unraveling. Yeah. And for me, I love exploring non-duality and the reality of the world and myself on a mental level. But the reward really comes when it touches my heart, when my emotions are blended into it, when it becomes easier for me to access love and joy and peace. That's the real reward. When I can feel like, oh wow, my body just went from being a solid entity to more be a field of something moving through a world. Like I am not solid matter walking on solid matter. I can feel that the softness in my body is almost like it's transparent. And that doesn't mean anything actually happened with my body. It didn't go from being matter, solid, dense, to becoming soft and transparent. No, it was just my understanding, the filter I put on my experiences. For some reason in this moment, it just lifted. And can we go looking for these Satoris? Well, the truth is, I don't know. But I have an intuition, or my experience is that the better I am at allowing myself to let go. And this is a trick because letting go means let go of control. So you can't control your letting go. But initially, letting go was a big process. It was like almost cemented with a lot of fear. And then it took a long time to rip off one layer of fear. And now I can easily go like, oh, it looks like I'm holding on to something here. Well, let's take a jump. Let's see what happens if I don't have to hold myself like this. And I trust my body more to do the letting go. I can't actually do the let go, but I can remove all the obstacles on it. I can remove extra tension from it. I can relieve the fear that's around it. I can remind myself that I do trust the process. It's almost like the mind can take you to the edge and release you of all the bondage, but the actual jump has to be done or not done by grace, I guess. It happens when it happens. It's not a doing. But the doing is in the preparation, in removing everything that keeps us stagnant. Yeah. Was that even helpful? I don't know. How can I make it more clear? How do we just remove fear? If we could just remove fear by deciding to remove it, of course we would do that. So removing fear is first looking at what I'm really afraid of. And then actually feel the fear. And you might not be able to do this on your own. Maybe you need to sit with a friend or a therapist, someone who's been through it themselves, and just practice on feeling the fear, going to the heart of it. What is really going on here, my dear? What are you afraid of losing? And that might go very deep. It might not be something you do in an afternoon. Or maybe you do it in a 4-minute process. Or maybe you don't look at it at all, and then you're blessed with a Satori anyway. It's not a mandatory step. But at least you're like, how do you say? You prepare the ground for it to happen. And if it doesn't happen, well, at least you got rid of a fear that's limiting you anyway. But for me, I felt like when I started looking at these fears, or these holding patterns in your body, when you start to lean into fear, when you actually start feeling it and being in it, it's quite terrifying. It's the thing you've been running from your whole life. And now you're being asked to turn towards it. Of course, it's going to be terrifying. But this is where you slowly build trust. You don't force yourself. You don't say to yourself, you should do this because this is the right thing. No, that easily becomes fuel for the fear. It has to be done in a loving, compassionate way. The feeling of, I have my back. I know how to handle this. I will only go as far as I feel capable of doing. Or I will have a resource with me that reminds me. That can pull me back and keep me on the edge of where I actually can be. Because if you lose self-love in this process, you might not actually be doing yourself any favor. Self-love in the sense of having a feeling that you got your own back. You don't have to perform. You're not chasing your own value. You have a loving, nurturing space inside where it's okay to collapse, it's okay to cry, it's okay to show weakness. And maybe some of us don't have that space nurtured yet. Then maybe that's where we start. We don't go straight to the fear. We rather build up the capacity to meet the fear. Perhaps that made it a bit clearer what I meant with removing the fear, as though it was like done in the blink of an eye. No, it might take a lot of courage and a lot of iterations. And do we do it in this for the sake of a Satori? Well, then it becomes a chasing, and when you chase something, it's difficult to let go. And I find that this is the paradox of spiritual work. Doing without doing. But when we only understand non-duality and reality with our minds, then our subconscious live in a different reality. We don't harvest all the jewels that are to harvest. It could still be interesting. And I'm not denying the value of understanding the world mentally, but there are deeper layers that will transform our lives, that will bless them. And they're available. They're available to everyone, to all of us. And the deeper all of us gets in it, the more love we are all having and the more access to creativity and freedom and passion and power, the more we radiate that out to each other. It's like a gift to the world when we work on ourselves. Yes. What is your relationship to a Satori or a bodily sensation, a realization beyond the mind? Please share in the comments. I'm curious to hear about how you experience it.